We need a Sajam tier list. The way I make tier lists is I make not tier lists. I pull up the character sheet and I go around the screen and I talk about all of them. I'm like, this is why I think they're very good. Because I think if you just make a list, it's an hour long, right? They're like, ooh, a new tier list came out. And then they do this. Wow, my character sucks. I knew it. And then they close the video. They just click to the end and they're like, nah, my character's ass. I knew it. That's why I was losing. Or if your character's top tier, you're like, nah, he's wrong, dude. He's definitely A and not S. Like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a Balrog player, dude. Like, what? Oro player, whatever, dude. And then they close that shit. I think here a lot of people were talking about Manon, JP, DJ is another one. But people just forgot about the beta characters, right? I think Guile is absurd. I think he's probably the best character still. I also think Jury and Luke are extremely good. In this game, there's lots of things that I think are extremely valuable to have. A plus on block medium is very nice. I think having a drive rush cancelable, like so a special cancelable low, is extremely strong. In general, having far drive rush cancelable moves is nice. Having a level 1 super that's invincible is extremely good. If your character doesn't have a level 1 super who's invincible, in Burnout, you have to decide if you want to spend level 2 super or level 3 super to get out of a drive impact. And if you're not winning the round, spending level 2 or level 3 is almost never worth it. Whereas if your character has an invincible level 1, it's like way less expensive to survive Burnout. Geefs is not invincible. DJ does not have an invincible level 1. That's one of his biggest weaknesses, which he makes up for by having a double fireball in Burnout. So he can still win fireball wars while burnt out, which is cheap, by the way. And he doesn't have good far cancelable drive rushable moves, but he makes up for that by having a regular invincible reversal when he does have meter. And his drive rush goes really far. So like he can just use his drive rush without canceling anything because it's so fast. Yeah, and level 1s are not projectile invincible, which means if your character has a trap in Burnout that's like button fireball, it's very hard for the opponent to get out if they do the super when you're doing the fireball because the projectile will stuff it. I think almost always if you're in Burnout and it's not the last round, spending bar to get out is not good unless you're spending 1. I also think being able to combo a light into drive rush and combo after is really, really good in this game. So like Marissa doesn't have that. Think about characters like Luke. He can do his crouching light punch or a standing light kick into drive rush, crouching jab, crouching heavy. Jury can do this too. It allows you to cash out damage off of your lights. So a light mash can turn into side swaps or level 3s or whatever you want to spend them on really easily with drive rush. And then it also gives you way more corner carry. It's one of Ken's biggest strengths, right? He can mash a jab and then get 70% screen corner carry a lot of times. That's why Ken is solid, even though he has a bad fireball. So much of his other tools have like really strong utility. Having a projectile in this game is also really strong. I think most of my strategy in most matchups, winning neutral in parentheses drive gauge. You know, a lot of people are really pissed about Manon, right? But like every time I fight that character, my only objective is to be winning in drive gauge when she hits me so that she can't one chance me very easily because if she does a drive rush or an EX, she burns herself out. So like every time I'm fighting Manon, all I'm trying to do is throw fireballs or pokes or whiff punish her enough to make her drive gauge low. Not her health. It doesn't matter how much health she has. Make sure that her drive gauge is always bad so that when she hits you, her offense is incredibly weak. Because if she doesn't have meter, her pressure is way worse. She can't drive rush command grab or drive rush heavy punch that's +1 on block and like leaves her in command grab range, or she can't drive rush, crouching medium kick, or crouching medium punch, or standing medium punch. She just loses all of the drive rush options that are super essential for the character's offense to be good. And if you have fireball, it's like pretty reliable. They're gonna like inevitably miss parry, or they're gonna be focused on parry, which lets you poke or take space or whip punish them, and then you get punish counter on that, and then they're losing drive gauge, and like, you know. It's also why I spend super a lot. I want them to have 3 or less drive gauge when I corner them so that if they mash and hit me and they drive rush, they burn out. I don't care if they hit me in the corner as long as their hit will burn them out if they spend any resources, which they almost always will. If they have 1 bar or less of drive gauge, I will always drive impact them as long as I have health and like the combo is not going to kill me. Because if they drive impact me back, they just burn themselves out. And I just sandblast, and then I walk them down, and then the health inevitably will be in your favor, probably. When you're in Burnout, everything is so much more plus. So every time I throw a sandblast and they block it, I get to walk so much space before they can do anything. And they're so scared to take chip that they're like neutral jumping. So I just like walk into the corner, and then they either need to jump at me because they're scared. They neutral jump, I'll drive impact the landing, or they try to dash at me or approach on the ground, and then you just poke them, and your pokes are +4 more than normal of block stun. It does not give you extra hit stun, or everybody would have infinites. But yeah, I don't know. I think Guile is the best, probably. Just sitting there, destroying your drive gauge and having ridiculous pokes and confirms. And he has like a 7-frame super or some nonsense. He fights in burnout well, which I think is really important in this game. I also think Jamie's good. I think Jamie is hard to play though. So everybody who thinks Jamie's bad, it's because they haven't optimized the character yet. I also don't think he dies to fireballs. I think he dies to guile, which is everybody. But I think against regular fireballs, he's probably okay. His neutral buttons are incredibly solid. Heavy kick and standing medium kick, crouching medium kick, and Rekka, they're all great. These are all good moves. He just gets a drink or two pretty fast, I think. Like the round has to be pretty bad for him not to have drinks, which means you've lost a bunch of interactions, which means most characters are probably gonna lose. I like can't stay far away from him because I need to threaten him so that he can't just drink for free. That makes it so that I have to walk up and play in his range, you know? I also think Cammy is good too, but her damage is not super high. She has universal life in this game, so she doesn't have less life, and she's like extremely well-rounded, right? She has really good utility with the side swaps and stuff. Her pressure's good, her lights are great. Punish counter dive kick when you whiff a poke is brutal. Jury, I think Jury's one of the best characters. I think she's super good. Her projectile is great, her pokes are super good. She has a really good heavy. Ken too. I think Ken is very solid. I actually don't understand how in the first beta, people thought Luke was not good. And he got nerfed, by the way. Beta Luke to launch Luke, he was like way better then because his jab was good. But I got fired before Street Fighter V Luke came out. So I never had the power of Street Fighter V Luke. I only have perspective of him as Street Fighter 6 Luke, and I think Street Fighter 6 Luke is hella good. Like, dude, he's got a meterless launcher, and Sandblast is so good. His drive rush is really solid. His buttons are ham, and he corner carries you like the full screen. He wins by just doing the basics well. Japan generally tends to rate well-rounded characters high, which is why I think that they think he's the best. Generally, in the West, we look at characters who have more pointed strengths and look at their like peaks, whereas like over there, they're like, oh, who's the most well-rounded, solid character? That's probably the best character. Listen. I saw you were playing Edmund Honda. Watching other people play it, I'm like, I'm happy you're having fun. Fighting against Edmund, I'm going through it. Once people stop just doing headbutt and butt slam over and over, I think he's still gonna end up being pretty good. I think butt slam is actually much easier to deal with as long as you have drive gauge. If you're in burnout, it's over, bro. I'll tell your family you fought as hard as you could.